Namaste friends and welcome back to another video of our class 12th NCERT series in which we are going to cover the most boring chapters in the most fun way possible. In this video, we are going to continue our chapter 9, the Mughal Court. Part 3. Let's go. Okay, so we saw there were a lot of paintings in the chronicles, but why do we need these paintings? Well, first reason, they can communicate a lot of ideas that words might not. Just like you like seeing pictures, everybody likes seeing pictures in books, right? Why? Because pictures can say a lot of things without saying a word, right? Just look at this. Such an innocent child, right? He's trying to feed this poor baby who does not have food through the TV. Second part, they enhance the beauty of the book, right? Absolutely beautiful pictures make it look very nice and pretty. Third one being, they gave the visual representation of the text. Here you can see a Mughal market. This picture has been taken from a chronicle, and in this you can clearly see the scenes of the market, the shops, the things they sell, the type of people around, the type of buildings, right? So everything that you would read in a chronicle, you could also see in a chronicle. That's the idea behind the paintings. But there was a problem with the paintings. So there were these people known as the ulama. Who are the ulama? They are the Muslim scholars. They are people who study Islam. Okay, they study the Quran and they lead a very, very pious life. Fine. So they are the Muslim scholars, the ulama. They had a problem with paintings. Why? Because they thought that giving life to something. So when an artist paints a painting, basically he's putting life into his work, right? So they thought that giving life into a non-living thing is the work of God or Allah, and a man should not take this role, right? So they were completely against the paintings. They advised the kings not to use paintings in the chronicles. But kings like Akbar, they had a different opinion about this. So what he says, many that hate painting, such men I dislike. So he does not like these men who dislike paintings. Why? He says, it appears to me that an artist has a unique way of recognizing God when he cannot bestow life upon his work. He says that you are saying that artist is giving life to that painting, but he says no, actually no matter how hard an artist tries, he cannot make his painting come alive completely, right? So he must revere God in some way or another. So there are few important names which you need to remember here. Very quickly, let's take a look at those as well. First one being Bizhar. He is a Safavid painter, that is Iranian, right? Iranian painter. And another two names are Mir Sayyid Ali and Abdus Samad. They are also from Iran only. Okay, so these were important painters from that period which you need to remember. Continuing, let's take a look at a few chronicles. Finally, let us see what's there in these chronicles, right? So first one is Akbarnama. You know what's this? The Chronicle of Akbar, right? Let's see who wrote it. It was written by Abul Fazl. Let's know a few things about Abul Fazl because his ideas are basically reflected in the Akbarnama, right? So he grew up in Agra, that is the capital of Akbar. He was a forceful debater. He was very good at providing solid logical arguments which Akbar very much liked. He opposed the ulama's views and ideas in a logical manner. So this is also coinciding with Akbar's point of view, right? He also opposed the ulama and orthodoxy. So what Akbar wanted, he wanted a very, very liberal state. That is a very, very open-minded state, okay? Not a very, very, orthodox state that is controlled by religious people and all, okay? So he does not like that. Akbar does not like such mindset. So he wanted to free the state from the control of religious orthodoxy, that is very, very strict religious principles, okay? So he chose Abul Fazl as his advisor and spokesperson of his policies, that is tell people about Akbar's policies, right? So started writing the Akbarnama in 1589. So when did he start writing the Akbarnama? In 1589 he starts writing. He writes it for 13 years, okay? So that's how long it took him to write down the 2 volumes of Akbarnama which he wrote, okay? So you can see here why I put this picture in, because he was a very, very forceful debater. This picture can remind you of that fact. He was very, very, he would provide solid arguments, respectfully no to the ulamas, right? Okay, now let's take a look at Akbarnama. So the Akbarnama, it's basically divided into 3 volumes. Let us look at the volumes. Okay, so out of these 3 volumes, the first 2 volumes are chronicles, and the third, An-e-Akbari, is basically about a description of the state. Okay, description of administration, you could say. Administration. Fine. Let us look at what's exactly in these volumes. Okay, so let's see how it is written. The story starts all the way from Adam. Who is Adam? He is the first man, right? Adam or Adam or Baba Adam, or whatever you want to call him. He was the first man, right? Believed in Abrahamic religions. Adam is the first man. So from first man to 30 years of Akbar's reign, this much story is covered in the first volume. Okay, the first 30 years of Akbar's reign, and that is when Akbar started ruling, the 30 years from that. Fine. In the second volume, that is from it starts from the 30th to 46th reign year of Akbar, that is 30th to 46th year of Akbar's reign, and the third one, it basically contains administration of Akbar. Okay, fine, very clear, very easy. Now there are 2 words which you need to remember. First one being synchronic and another one being diachronic. Synchronous actually and diachronous. What is the meaning of these 2 words? Very confusing words. Okay, let me make it very, very easy. At diachronous, these 2 are basically types of accounts. Okay, that is the types of records. How history has been recorded, how books are written. Okay, so they are basically written in two ways. That is, diachronous means it is mentioning one event. Okay, one event over a period of time. Over time. Fine. That is, if you take for example the capital. The capital at the time of Akbar was Agra, right? So it would just mention Agra and how it has developed, say from the 30th to 46th regnal year of Akbar. That would be a diachronous record. A synchronous record, on the other hand, it takes many events. Okay, many events at one time. Okay, at one time. Now, what would be an example of this? The An-e-Akbari is a good example of a synchronous record. Why? Because it mentions many factors like culture, geography, administration, the people, languages at one period of time. Okay, at a single time period, it mentions about all these things. Whereas a diachronous record would be something like the first 2 volumes. Okay, the second chronicle here we have is Badshahnama, that is the chronicle of Shah Jahan. Okay, you know who is Shah Jahan? The grandson of Akbar. Who wrote this chronicle? Written by Abdul Hamid Lahori. What's his name again? Abdul Hamid and Lahori. No, that's one person's name. Okay, Abdul Hamid Lahori. Who was he? He was pupil of Abul Fazl, that is the writer of Akbarnama's student. Okay. So this is also written in 3 volumes or daftars. This is not or, this is or. Okay, or daftars. What is the volume again? It's a part. Fine. So this is also in 3 parts. Each part is 10 lunar years. Okay, so 10 years, 1 part. Fine. Lahori is writing the first 2 daftars or volumes. So Lahori has written 20 years of history. That is 2 volumes. 2 volumes by Lahori. Okay. Abdul Hamid Lahori has written only the first 2 volumes. And the last volume has been written by historian Waris. He has written the 3rd volume, right? Fine. And the first 2 volumes written by Lahori have been revised by Saad-ullah Khan. Who is Saad-ullah Khan? He is the Wazir of Shah Jahan, that is the Prime Minister of Shah Jahan, right? Okay, so this is all you need to know about Badshahnama. Fine. The British and the Chronicles. So why did the British want to study the Chronicles? Because they were trying to understand who are these people. When they came to India, they had no idea of our culture, of who we were, right? Or how we were ruled before. Fine. So they wanted to learn these things. So what they did, they started studying many Indian manuscripts. So like these chronicles, there were other manuscripts also. They were being studied by the British. Where was this work happening? This work was happening at the Asiatic Society of Bengal. Okay, who established this? Sir William Jones did in 1784. So what was happening here in Asiatic Society of Bengal? They were basically editing, printing and translating many Indian manuscripts. That is, they would take these manuscripts which would be written in, say for example, these chronicles were written in Persian, and they would translate it into English and they would publish an English version. For Sanskritic texts also this work was done by them, right? So who translated the Akbarnama? Henry Beveridge did. Important from exam point of view. Only excerpts of Badshah-Nama have been translated till date. So Badshah-Nama has not been translated completely. So we do not know what secrets are hidden in that book completely. Fine. Let's see what questions have come in the exam from this chapter. Let's see. Mughals translated their grand vision through the writing of dynastic histories, that is chronicles. Chronicles, beta. Explain the statement with reference to Akbarnama and Badshah-Nama. Yeah. Let's see. So Akbarnama, this is what the topper has written in exam. Okay, this is an 8 marks question. It's actually a very long answer. I have trimmed it down to what we have studied today, so you can see that this is actually coming in the exam also. Very important, huh? Well, so see, about the author, he has written about Abul Fazl, he has written a few facts which we have studied. You can read once. What was the purpose? Diachronic, synchronic, we have studied this, right? 3 books we have studied. First book, what's there? Second book, what's there? Ane-Akbari, what is there? We know, right? Badshah-Nama, what's there? Let's see. Official Shah Jahan's rule, 3 volumes, right? What is covered in the volumes? Abdul Hamid Lahori, the author of this, right? We know Saadullah Khan, right? All of this we have just studied, right? So you can see how practical and fun these lessons are. With that, I would like to congratulate you on covering another part of this beautiful series. If you are enjoying what you are seeing, do let me know in the comments. Do share with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe. If you want PPTs, this PPT for revision or for your notes purpose, you can join my Telegram group. The link is in the description and you can get it from there. Thank you all for watching this one. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, bye bye.